Good morning. Welcome to Lovin Daily. I'm your host, Sam Vasallo, joined by Christian Peregrine. It is Monday morning. It's lovely outside. Did you go out this weekend, Chris?
Hi, Sam. It's Perigene, by the way. I had quite a fun weekend, but I'm still getting used to meeting people again. So I'm keeping it a bit slow. I didn't hit the clubs or anything like that. Did you go to Parkville this weekend at all?
Yes, I did go to Portugal purely for journalistic reasons. Actually,
What was it like?
um, I mean, it felt quite normal, except the fact that bartenders were wearing masks. I also saw some strippers in visors, so that was a cool um,
Interesting.
COVID experience, I suppose. But it just feels that everyone's, ready to get back to this so-called new normal now.
Yeah. So let's start with the headlines.
For sure. So our first story, 425 migrants kept on commercial vessels have finally been brought to Malta. We also have a story about abusive comments towards young activists, which requires urgent action according to the National Youth Council. We also have a potent story about media wings of Malta's major political parties who have not filed official accounts for a decade. Today, Prime Minister Abela is set to announce an economic stimulus package to incentivize things like weekend breaks and eating out in post-COVID Malta. And lastly, we'll be talking about the ex-police commissioner, Lawrence Cutajar, who is expected to be questioned over the Caruana Galizia tip-off.
Yeah, so let's start with the first story. Obviously, a very big story that happened on Saturday night. The Prime Minister Robert Abela took a decision to bring in the four boats, the commercial harbour cruise vessels that were housing more than 425 migrants for many days now. One of the boats had been out at sea for 40 days. And in his, there wasn't much explanation about this decision. The only explanation came in the form of an interview with the Labour Party TV station. Once again, the Prime Minister is giving the important information in this way, which is a pity because we didn't get to ask any questions. There's no proper briefing about what happened. He's claiming, as Labour leader, that the migrants, at least on one of the boats, the migrants had threatened the crew over there, and even brandished a knife and threatened to blow up a gas cylinder, and gave the government an ultimatum of 30 minutes. This is what Robert Abela is saying. And he said, I could have decided to put the AFM on the boat because the boats were being manned by private security. But he was worried that the armed forces of Malta would create a situation that could also result in loss of lives and issues like that. So he said, to protect the army, he decided to bring the boats in. I think there was one remark he said as well that was particularly interesting. He said, being 40 days on a boat that's not equipped for sleeping, it's a struggle to spend 40 days on a cruise line, let alone a boat like this. So he kind of understood the plight of the migrants. But he's also saying, this wasn't a populist decision. This was something he was kind of forced to do. Now, what's interesting is obviously the reaction has been overwhelming. There's been a lot of people who have criticized the Prime Minister for this decision, especially within his own party. You have people like Tony Zarb calling for Malta to leave the EU on the grounds of this issue, quite a big discussion. The activists who have been campaigning in favor of the migrants being brought in celebrated this decision, but there was a lot of hate towards them as well. Sam, what do you make of this? And this whole kind of discussion online as well in response to this decision.
So, I mean, clearly this wasn't a so-called politically easy decision to make, but it was the right one. We're talking about humans here who have been on board the ship for over a month now. Clearly, this hasn't gone down well with certain people in the population, so much so that they staged an All Lives Matter protest yesterday against his decision to get these migrants onto land in Malta. I think it was painfully ironic, actually. They had these slogans that said, "No to overpopulation, no to cheap labor, Malta first before everything." They even put, flowers, and they had banners with anti-migrant undertones at the foot of a Seta Junior memorial statue. Seta Junior was an act of civil disobedience. I can understand where they're coming from. Their use of this "All Lives Matter" slogan in its context in the world shows that I don't think they really understand what that's supposed to mean. Again, one of these decisions that has split the nation, basically. So much so, people are so angry that abuse was held to a young activist, one of the activists, Caruana Galizia, who started these protests to bring the migrants in. This is, a super deep issue ingrained in Maltese society as well as the rest of the world. But so much so in Malta that we have one of the highest rates of hate speech in the EU. And anyone who spends, more than a week here can see that. Anytime someone comes with something controversial or a young activist, stands up for something, you can expect death threats and you can expect hate speech. That's basically something that has become normalized. So essentially, yesterday, this Maltese activist, Caruana Galizia, spoke out against death threats that he had received because, of his position wanting the migrants in. One public figure actually joined in this horrible hurling of abuse, who was the Gozo channel chairman, Joe Cordina, who literally commented "fuck you" on an 18-year-old's Facebook profile. Like, we've come to this where not only is it normalized in the general population, but public figures and politicians can get away with saying what they want with no action taken against them. Republic has called for an investigation following this, and has called for an investigation by the Hate Crimes Unit. Now, personally, I feel like the Hate Crimes Unit has, they have a lot to speak out about. I want to know what they've been doing about hate speech and death threats received, even in the last year. Like myself as an activist, I have received death threats to no avail. Nothing has been done about it. So what does it take for them to take action? What is the actual role of the Hate Crimes Unit in this? And are we going to do something about this horrendous disease we have in Malta?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's a difficult debate, I think, because policing speech isn't necessarily the best way of tackling it. It might need to be done, and there is obviously movement to get that done. But I think there's also the problem of us having getting used to and we have this situation in the world, because this is something affecting the whole world, where we're getting so sort of empowered to comment on everything. That Facebook kind of encourages this kind of commenting and participation on an ongoing basis, but it also encourages algorithmic content, so giving you the content that confirms your biases or that triggers you, and that just creates a lot of we're still getting used to it. It creates a lot of kind of disagreements and extremism, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned politicians leading by example, and that brings us to the next story we have about how much they are not leading by example on another matter, and how this is another instance where we cannot expect the population to have civil debates if politicians are not doing so. One of the problems we have, so the story we published yesterday, was that both political parties, the Nationalist Party and the Labour Party, have failed to obey the very basic rule of publishing their audited accounts for over a decade. So we've been tolerating Nationalist Party, I think, since 2004, Labour Party since 2010, that they don't publish their their audited accounts on the MFSA, as on the company of the Register of Companies, something they're obliged to do, and they should be getting fined about €2,000 a year and €50 a day for not doing so. So you can imagine what fines these guys are meant to be incurring. The Nationalist Party, when we asked them why this isn't being done, they said they're carrying out an active exercise to bring its financial statements up to date, and once they're completed, they will file with the Malta Business Registry. Fine, but they said this 3 years ago to Malta Today, so the situation hasn't changed. The situation with the Labour Party, I guess, is even worse because they didn't even reply to our questions. And again, political party on any day is a political party media on any day is something to question. Should we have such a big portion of our broadcast media and the rest of our media taken up and owned by political parties? I guess much less so if they're not even going to abide by the basic rules, right?
Indeed, and I believe that these political parties and the fact that they have their own media outlets really, doesn't help the situation with divisiveness and hate speech and just complete bias and not being able to kind of just sit down and just listen to the other side of the story, and just try and find some common ground. And I feel like, anytime you hear two politicians from different political parties try and speak, it's just an hour of them talking over each other. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So next story about the budget that was meant to be.
Indeed. So Prime Minister Robert Abela had spoken about the so-called mini budget to incentivize spending in this post-COVID-19 Malta. And this was last minute scrapped and is going to be replaced by an economic stimulus package, because in normal circumstances, the procedure would be that you'd have a budget presented by the finance minister, and you'd need to give time for the opposition to react. They didn't give enough time for the opposition to react, so they just scrapped it and are just going to announce these economic measures. Prime Minister Robert Abela, of course, in an interview on One News, his favorite channel, talked about possibly weekend breaks and eating out as some kind of incentives for spending. I think after speaking to the head of Chamber of Small and Medium Enterprises, I think what needs to be focused on more than anything right now, instead of incentivizing people to go to businesses to spend money, is helping businesses not fall under by the end of the year. So essentially, Abigail Mama, who is the head of the Chamber of Small and Medium Enterprise, said that if there are no measures for helping with rent, utilities, even the health costs they've had to put in because of these mitigation measures, we can see a lot of these businesses going down possibly before the end of the year. So I really hope that is included in these measures as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether the government takes on the Nationalist Party's proposal, which a lot of people had mocked, of giving vouchers to people to go and enjoy their restaurants and weekend breaks, etc. So that would be interesting to see. I think also, Robert Abela pitched this as a major, investment that would really encourage businesses to spend and to invest and to employ, and it is needed. Let's not forget, loads of people have been made unemployed since the COVID period. A lot of people have reduced salaries or reduced hours. A lot of businesses have, changed their prices as well and have had to react to these things. So it's a big domino effect, and we do need a feel-good factor in the economy. We do need to know that those who are spending, those who are investing today are going to be rewarded accordingly, because it is much riskier now to invest. So we'll wait to see. Obviously, you can follow the non-budget stimulus package on Lovin Malta tonight. And what you can do today is follow Lovin Malta's coverage of the Caruana Galizia murder case. So we have Melvin Thoma in court again, responding to questions about the recordings that he had been found with. And there's been quite an update since yesterday. So yesterday, the Sunday Times of Malta published an important story, a big story, that there have been some new recordings, and that these new recordings bring the former police commissioner Lawrence Cutajar into some trouble as well. So, as we know, Melvin Toma is the middleman, the self-confessed middleman in the Daphne Caruana Galizia murder. He's been given a presidential pardon, and he was given that presidential pardon as well to explain a lot of the recordings that he had been found with. So there's a lot of voice recordings that he had with the murder suspect Jorgen Fenech and other people. Now, there were some recordings that had been deleted but have been reconstructed by Europol. And so that is quite interesting. You know, why were these recordings deleted, and did Melvin Toma speak out about them before? And it seems that the former police commissioner Lawrence Cutajar is now under deeper scrutiny because he might have given Melvin Toma a tip-off about his arrest, and that's kind of the implication of the Sunday Times. Now, Cutajar was fired as police commissioner by Robert Abela, but he was made a consultant to our Home Affairs Minister. In fact, yesterday the Nationalist Party called for him to be fired and removed from this role. We don't have an answer yet from the Home Affairs Minister, and you know, this kind of, I guess, sheds new light on whether there was a cover-up, or how wide the cover-up was extended in terms of the Daphne Caruana Galizia case. Jason Azzopardi from the Nationalist Party questioned, you know, yesterday on Facebook, whose instructions was Cutajar working on. So that's a big question. We still don't know who is being implicated further in this case, but obviously this doesn't look good at all on the former police commissioner, and we'll need to see, you know, later on today in court whether any of this comes up in the actual court proceedings. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Sam.
It's just, you know, each day in court, you know, something new comes up. It's another person at the top. You know, this huge network of people involved in this case, and I just hope that you know, everything comes to light and justice prevails at the end. You know.
That's it. Another thing, I guess, I don't know who mentioned it tonight, there is a Black Lives Matter protest that's going to be, or demonstration that's going to be held outside Parliament, and there has been mention of a rival protest, the All Lives Matter protest. So we'll be following that space as well. Always follow Lovin Water to get your updates, and I think that's about it for today. Happy Monday. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for watching, and have a day full of loving.